It was a very dark, rainy night. I remember that night very clearly. I remember it raining heavily as I sat at the bus stop waiting for the rain to clear out. I remember checking my wristwatch and seeing it was 10:47 p.m. on October near Halloween. And of course it creeps me out and spooks me out. Halloween was never my thing. I felt a numbing feeling behind me but brushed it off. The last bus of the night stopped in front of me. It was those regular yellow buses with huge windows where you could see the raindrops sliding down the glass panels. I thought twice and boarded the bus. I paid for my ride, hoping I could save it, though it would take hours for me to go home because of the heavy rain. I boarded the bus and walked down the aisle. I could still remember the blank faces of each possible passenger I could fathom, especially the driver. His eyes, he was staring at me intently. I think it was about to pop out. Each time I took a step further towards a seat, the people staring gave me continuous goosebumps that I could still feel to this day. Finally, I sat next to an old man, very tall. I could assume he could reach my cabinet's top shelf and place my favorite toy there when I was little. I think he was around 6 feet. I wasn't able to get a glimpse of his face because of his ancient top hat dangling above his noticeable bald head. Yet when I sat next to him, I vividly remember a stench looming towards me. It's like the stench I smelled when I went hiking and found a dead deer's body lying around the corners. Dead, retching animal corpses, decaying skin being eaten by crows, probably kind of smell. I tried to cover my nose, but it didn't do any help. And so I tried to get off the seat and find another, but those eyes, they were all staring at me. Their seemingly astonished eyes crept up around my neck, circling to my nape and going down my spine. A shiver I felt. Haunting it felt. I finally got away from that god-awful smell that old man was reeking of and got into a cozy little seat on the right side of the bus. I guess sitting beside an old man at the very back was a bad idea. Curses. Why did it have to rain in a Saturday evening? The creepy staring, the disgusting smell, now this fogged up window. My night couldn't be all better, though I felt a little weird the first time I put my foot down on this bus. All I could feel was the continuous goosebumps starting to creep all around my back, and I felt very itchy. Wait, that temperature. I could hear someone breathing behind me. I could feel their breath. I could smell their stench. Must it be the old man from earlier? What the hell is he doing smelling me like I'm some prey? I couldn't just let him do this to me. But this might cause me a commotion and get kicked out of this bus. So I brushed it off and looked out the window. Minutes had passed by, and I heard some clicking in my left ear. I wanted to turn around so bad, but something's telling me no. And a while later I heard more clicking. I feel like it's just the old man clicking his tongue to pass the time, so I tried to sleep. It felt like minutes had turned to hours, and seconds had turned to years. I wasn't able to fully delve into a deeper sleep, woken up from an ambulance siren. Annoyed and bewildered, I checked my watch, and what I saw confused me. Really confused me. The watch still says 10:47, as if time has stopped. It can't be broken. I mean, it's working perfectly earlier, and it's still working now. I tried to sleep it away, but I just couldn't. How could I not? No, it's not because I can't sleep. It's because I cannot sleep. I remember. That old man. I can still feel the hot breath hitting my neck. I remember its hot, rotting breath. I remember it creeping behind me. I was scared. I was scared, and no one was helping. I was scared of what he might do to me. I was scared to open my eyes. I was scared. I am scared. To this day, I am still traumatized. I felt the need to stop it, so I opened my eyes. I opened it, and I saw everything. Those eyes, my God, those eyes. I felt the bus stop. I felt their stares pierce me like the stake that pierced Jesus. Their faces were blank. No, 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 no. I turned my gaze towards the outside world, towards the window, and saw red. The rain turned red. I jumped out of my seat and looked around, seeing everyone but him. The old man was gone. How? Why only him? What about the others? The darkness crept around me. I felt it engulfing me, swallowing me, eating me alive. The bus rooftop flew into pieces and rain started to fill up my pants with yellow and I opened my eyes. I saw it. The tall, lanky man. Its ruined top hat, sharp claws, freshly ironed business suit. I could hear his footsteps ringing in my ear. His face, I couldn't see it. But all I heard was the clicking. The next thing I knew, the people sitting weren't there. It was just me and it. It stopped. It chuckled. And there it was. It revealed to me his face. And it was smiling. At the time of writing this, I am the age of 15. At the time of my first encounter with it, I was 7 or 8. I was at my best friend at the time, Emilio's 8th birthday. The location of the party was located in the woods of Arkansas, near Springdale. If only I knew what I saw was real. After the cake dunking, we checked the time and it was around 8 p.m. Throughout the party, the feeling of something just off in the distance of the woods. If only we left before we saw it. At the entrance of the forest, I noticed a figure, or like a shadow off into the bank of the woods. This creature was there. It was disgusting. It was haunting. I don't think it was human. The thing's eyes were white when us kids saw it until it opened them. It was a hollow black. That's it. Nothing. Its eyes looked like an endless void. It was pale and human-like. It was slumped over when it looked at us. It made a noise, like a click whilst it moved its claw, like fingers in a motion to come over. I still can't shake over the feeling of it. When we told the adults that we saw something in the woods, they told us to go inside. I forgot to mention they owned a cabin nearby. I proceeded to look out the window when one of the adults went out to examine it, but before they got to it, it scurried away. I don't know what I saw, but I think I saw it again, recently. I told my grandma about it. She said to not speak about skinwalkers. She is Cherokee, but at the time I didn't know what that meant, so I looked it up on my dad's phone. I guess I saw a skinwalker or something like a bush crawler, maybe a rake. It's hard to tell because my grandma doesn't want to tell me about it. It's 2024. I was at my grandfather's house with 2 of my cousins. A year before we saw it, my cousin's mom left them at my grandfather's house. I slept in the same room, and for some reason one of them, Tension, yes, that's her name, locked the window and closed the blinds. I asked why, and she responded with something along the lines of, "So, IT doesn't see us." I was stumped on this. Next night, all 3 of us wanted to catch some tree frogs. I was to hold the flashlight. Tennyson was to catch them, and Zarin, my other cousin, to keep watch. That's when we saw it. That fucking thing was following me across towns. I was in Mountain Home, that was about 150 miles away from Springdale. It was in the bush looking at us. This thing's mouth appeared unhinged, its eyes black, tall and long claws. As a normal human being, I took out my phone and recorded it. The thing stood up and started walking towards us. I instantly stopped recording, launched my phone at it to try to scare it. Then we ran. We ran as fast as we could. But I stopped dead in my tracks when I heard Jack and my mother's voice. I'm scared to even go outside past 8 p.m. or before 6 a.m. I'm currently at my dad's house in Clift, and I could have sworn I heard its click that it made when I first saw it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Please, I need answers on what this thing might be. It started when I moved into the old Victorian house just outside of town. The rent was almost suspiciously cheap, but as a broke college student, I wasn't in any position to ask questions. The place had charmed creaky hardwood floors, high ceilings, and enough room for me to actually stretch out. It was perfect, or so I thought. During my first week there, I found the door. It was in the basement, tucked away behind old furniture and dust-covered boxes, heavy and made of iron. It was padlocked with a thick, rusted chain. I didn't think much of it at first. It probably an old storage room the previous owners had locked up and forgotten. I wasn't curious enough to investigate. But then the noises started. At first it was subtle, just a soft scratching sound, almost like rats scurrying behind the walls. I figured it was an old house, probably full of pests. But then, after a few days, the scratching turned into something else. Faint, barely audible, but unmistakable whispering. It came late at night, usually around 3 a.m. A soft murmur of voices, too quiet to make out, but constant. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself that it was just the wind or my mind playing tricks on me. But no matter what I did, the whispers persisted. They seemed to come from behind the locked door, almost as if something or someone was trapped behind it. One night the whispers stopped, replaced by something worse. A knock. 3 slow, rhythmic knocks, then silence. I stayed awake, heart pounding in my chest, waiting for the sound to return. When it did, I was frozen in place. 3 knocks. Silence. Over and over again, every few minutes, like clockwork. I finally worked up the nerve to call the landlord. I hadn't wanted to bother him with complaints, but this was different. I needed answers. When I asked about the door, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Whatever you do," he said slowly, "don't open it." I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke, but his tone was deadly serious. "Just leave it alone," he warned before hanging up. At night, the knocking was louder, more insistent. Every time I tried to fall asleep, it would jolt me awake. I went down to the basement, heart hammering in my chest, and saw the door, standing there like always, silent and unmoving. I shone a flashlight on the padlock, tugged at the chain. It was still securely fastened, but the knocking continued, louder now, more frantic. 2 weeks passed and the knocking never stopped. By this point I was barely sleeping, nerves frayed from the endless sound. I started to hear my name in the whispers, soft but unmistakable. Then one night something changed. Around 3 a.m. the knocking grew violent, like someone or something was desperately trying to get out. Then came a metallic click. I ran down the stairs, only to find the padlock lying on the floor. The door was ajar, just a sliver, and cold air was seeping through the crack. I stood there for what felt like hours, flashlight shaking in my hand. The door creaked open a little more, revealing a staircase that spiraled down into darkness. It made no sense, the basement shouldn't go any deeper. But as I stood there, trying to comprehend what I was seeing, I heard it again. A whisper, my name spoken clearly this time. Against every instinct, I reached out and pulled the door open wider, shining the flashlight into the void. I could see nothing but black. Then, from the darkness, I felt it, a cold, skeletal hand wrapped around my ankle. I screamed, stumbling backward, kicking wildly until the grip loosened. The door slammed shut on its own, and the padlock snapped back into place. For a moment, everything was quiet. But now, every night at 3 a.m., I hear that familiar metallic click. The padlock breaks, the door creaks open, and something whispers my name from the darkness below. I don't know how much longer I can resist,